During an all-party meeting held on Thursday, several opposition parties asked questions about the apparent failure of security protocols in the Pahalgam attack that resulted in the loss of 26 innocent lives. According to sources, in response, the government reportedly said local authorities did not inform security agencies before opening the Baisaran area near Pahalgam in Anantnag district, which traditionally remains restricted until the Amarnath Yatra in June. Concerns were also raised about the delayed response to the incident. According to sources, government officials explained that the site was a 45-minute uphill walk and that no standard operating procedure was in place to handle such emergencies swiftly. Pakistan has closed its airspace with India after India hit it with a slew of diplomatic measures, blaming it for the Pahalgam terror attack. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has vowed to hunt down those responsible for killing 26 people. Getting behind the Prime Minister's message, India's political parties have expressed full support to the government in the aftermath of the attack in Jammu and Kashmir.
India's spirit will never be broken by terrorism. Terrorism will not go.
India on Thursday officially informed Pakistan about its decision to keep the Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance with immediate effect, saying that Islamabad has breached the conditions of the treaty. According to sources, following India's communication on Indus Water Treaty, Pakistan is now considering to go in abeyance of the Shimla Agreement and Tashkent Declaration with India. Pakistan has decided to close its airspace for India-operated civilian as well as military aircraft. The decision was taken at a meeting of the National Security Committee that was chaired by Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. Pakistan's government also matched the diplomatic measures taken by India. A gun battle has erupted in the Bandipora district of Jammu and Kashmir on Friday. Security forces launched a cordon and search operation in the Kulnar Bazipura area following information about the presence of terrorists in the area. According to officials, the search operation turned into an encounter after the hiding terrorists opened fire on security personnel. The house of two terrorists suspected to be involved in Pahalgam terror attack were destroyed in a blast. In the first incident, a blast took place during a search operation by security forces in Tral. The terrorist Asif Sheikh is suspected to be one of the local terrorists involved in Pahalgam terrorist attack. As per the information, during the search, some suspicious objects were observed. Security forces sensed danger, swiftly retracted for safety, but there was a huge blast in which the house got badly damaged. The house of another terrorist, Adil Thokar, also known as Adil Gauri, a resident of Guri, Bijbehara, has been demolished. Adil had legally travelled to Pakistan in 2018. And Surat, India's latest warship has successfully intercepted a fast, low-flying target using a medium-range surface-to-air missile system in the Arabian Sea. The missile system, developed jointly with Israel, has a 70-kilometer interception range and is designed to tackle sea-skimming threats. The test showcased high precision under live operational conditions. The United Nations urged India and Pakistan to show maximum restraint as the nuclear-armed rivals imposed tit-for-tat diplomatic measures over a deadly shooting in Kashmir. Relations have plunged to the lowest level in years, with India accusing Pakistan of supporting cross-border terrorism after gunmen carried out the worst attack on civilians in contested Muslim-majority Kashmir for a quarter of a century. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Tuesday vowed to hunt down the gunmen responsible for killing 26 civilians at the popular tourist site of Pahalgam after Indian police identified 2 of the 3 fugitive gunmen as Pakistani. Amid escalating tensions with China, the Philippines is set to receive its second batch of the BrahMos supersonic cruise missiles from India to bolster the country's coastal defense capabilities. Philippines Secretary Gilberto Teodoro said, "Now that the BrahMos supersonic cruise missiles are arriving, we will do what needs to be done to ensure that they are used properly." The BrahMos, which has a range of 290 kilometers and can be fired from land, sea and submarine, is part of the Philippine military's modernization program. Under a 2022 deal with BrahMos Airspace worth $375 million, Manila agreed to purchase 3 BrahMos missile batteries. The first batch arrived in April 2024. Gaza rescue teams and medics say Israeli airstrikes killed at least 55 people in the Palestinian territory as the military threatened an even larger offensive if hostages were not freed soon. The Civil Defense Agency said 6 members of one family, including 4 children, were killed when an airstrike leveled their home in northern Gaza City. 9 people were killed and several wounded in another strike on a former police station in the Jabalia area of northern Gaza. In another deadly attack, the bodies of 12 people were recovered from the Haj Ali family home in Jabalia, which was struck. According to Gaza medics, another 28 people were killed in strikes across the territory. According to Hamas-run Health Ministry, at least 1,978 people have been killed in Gaza since Israel resumed its operations, raising the overall death toll to at least 51,355 since the war began in October 2023. Israel's army chief Eyal Zamir, visiting troops in Gaza, threatened to expand the offensive in the region if hostages seized during Hamas's October 7, 2023 attack on Israel were not released. The Israeli military announced that a soldier had been killed on Saturday in the fighting in Gaza. The military said 35-year-old Sergeant Major Ghalib Sliman al-Nasasra fell during combat in northern Gaza, while 3 others were also wounded. Israeli hostage Omri Miran's wife made a heartfelt plea for the release of the husband. This after receiving a new sign of life in a video released by the Palestinian militant group Hamas. The video is the second time Miran, who was taken hostage from Kibbutz Nahal Oz, has been seen since his abduction. Miran's wife urged world leaders to help get a deal done and bring the hostages back. Russia pounded Kyiv with missiles and drones overnight, killing at least 12 people in the biggest attack on the Ukrainian capital this year. The attack has drawn a rare rebuke from US President Donald Trump. In a post on Truth Social, Trump addressed Russian President Vladimir Putin and wrote, "Vladimir, stop." The Kyiv attack also wounded 90 people, smashed buildings and set off fires. Trump said the attack was not necessary and this was very bad timing as he was pushing for peace. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has said that Moscow now needs to move forward in negotiations and that the ball is now in the Russian court. After meeting with US President Trump in Washington, Rutte further said that huge steps have been taken in recent days in the peace talks. But the NATO chief asserted that the US and European nations collectively agree that Russia is a long-term threat. Thai Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra was admitted to a hospital with high fever shortly after returning from an official visit to Cambodia. A government spokesperson said on Friday Paetongtarn travelled to Cambodia this week for a two-day visit, during which he met Prime Minister Hun Manet to discuss cross-border cooperation on issues such as online scams and air pollution. The two leaders also discussed leveraging ASEAN as a platform to negotiate with US President Donald Trump on trade tariffs. Government spokesperson Jirayu Hongsap said that the Prime Minister's schedule for Friday would be postponed or delegated to a deputy, including planned meeting with e-commerce CEO Chris Fung and former British Prime Minister Tony Blair. A fast-moving wildfire is engulfing part of New Jersey's Pine Barrens. However, it has not resulted in any injuries so far. Although authorities do say the fire is expected to grow before forecast rain later this week. Furthermore, according to reports, a man set a bonfire using wooden pallets in New Jersey's Pine Barrens and left them without fully extinguishing the blaze, sparking a quick-moving wildfire in southern New Jersey. Authorities arrested the 19-year-old from Waretown, New Jersey, and charged him with arson and aggravated arson in the fire that's still burning. The dollar drifted high on Friday following small losses a day earlier as traders grappled with the outlook for the US economy. The US currency has oscillated wildly this week, starting with a 1% tumble against major peers on Friday after Trump threatened to fire Fed Chair Jerome Powell for not cutting interest rates quickly enough. The dollar then surged 1.5% a day later as Trump said he never had any intention of replacing Powell and mooted a de-escalation in his trade war with China. A lack of actual progress towards opening talks with Beijing, though, had the dollar drooping again later in the week. Investors are particularly in the dark about where things currently stand with China. Beijing asserted on Thursday that it has not held trade talks with Washington, although Trump repeated later in the day that direct negotiations are underway. Oil prices edged higher but were on track for a weekly loss as a potential OPEC plus output increase and a possible ceasefire in the Russia-Ukraine war may raise supply at the same time. Conflicting US tariff signals limit the demand outlook. A halt to Russia's war in Ukraine and easing of sanctions against them could allow more Russian oil to flow to global markets. Russia, a member of the OPEC Plus group that includes the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, is one of the world's biggest oil producers along with the United States and Saudi Arabia. Recently, several OPEC Plus members had suggested the group accelerate oil output increase for a second month in June. The demand outlook also remains cloudy amid the trade war between China and the US, the world's two largest oil consumers. Core inflation in Japan's capital accelerated to a two-year high in April on surging food costs, making the central bank's quest to fully exit ultra-easy policy a delicate balancing act of managing risk between higher US tariffs and rising prices. Friday's Tokyo inflation data, considered a leading indicator of nationwide trends, comes ahead of the BOJ policy meeting on the 30th of May, where central bank is widely expected to keep short-term rates steady at 0.5%. While BOJ Governor Kazuo Ueda has signaled the central bank's readiness to keep raising rates, the US tariffs have complicated its decision on when and how it could hike. Businesses across multiple industries are hiking prices, backing away from previous financial guidance and warning of growing uncertainty as US President Donald Trump's trade war pushes up costs, upends supply chains and stirs concerns about the global economy. Earnings released on Thursday showed that corporations around the world ran into a wall of uncertainty in the first quarter as executives found themselves navigating the Trump administration's constantly shifting stance on trade. With the earnings season entering its second busy week, companies were counting the cost of chaos and setting out how they plan to stem the fallout. Almost 30 companies around the globe have either withdrawn or cut their forecasts in the past 2 weeks. Neeraj Chopra has issued a 529-word statement after receiving hate and abuse for an invitation he extended to Pakistan's Arshad Nadeem. The Indian clarified that he had invited Nadeem to his event in Bengaluru 2 days before the Pahalgam terror attack and that Nadeem's presence was out of question after the incident. Chopra expressed his anguish after being questioned about his patriotism. He said that he's carried the tricolour with pride over the years and it hurts him to listen to all the false narratives. For latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.